I've always been the kind of person who measures time in little loyalties. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind. More like the quiet ones that show up on random Tuesdays. The way I remember how Rob takes his coffee, 2 sugars, never stirred enough. The way he knows I'll always take the hardest territory without complaining. The way 12 years in the same pharmaceutical sales role can still feel like forward motion if the person leading you actually sees you. I'm Jenny, 38, and I've been with the company long enough to have watched 3 rebrands, 2 new eras, and more quarterly goal resets than I can count. Through all of it, Rob has been my boss. The same Rob who can read a room in 5 seconds, who never throws anyone under the bus, who lets me talk him out of bad ideas and then pretends it was his plan all along so nobody's ego gets bruised. That dynamic, his steadiness and my bluntness, has been the foundation of my work life. It matters to me more than I admit out loud, because work is where I go when everything else feels messy. Work is where I can be excellent and be rewarded for it. Work is where I can control the outcome. At home, the outcome is softer. I'm with Mia, also 38, a woman with warm hands and a laugh that starts in her chest and never sounds like she's apologizing for taking up space. Mia and I have been together long enough to have our routines. Sunday grocery runs, nightly decompression walks, the way she always touches my shoulder when she passes behind my chair like a small reminder that I'm not alone in whatever I'm carrying. Rob's married to Margot, 40, who has this calm, rational vibe that makes you feel like the world is basically manageable if you just keep your head. The 4 of us have done dinners, game nights, little summer patio hangs. It wasn't forced, it just worked. Like 2 couples who genuinely like each other as people. And that's why what happened 2 months ago landed like a pebble dropped into a clear pond. Not a splash, something quieter, but the ripples kept traveling. It was one of those evenings where the building feels like it's exhaling. The office lights dim on a timer, and you're left with that soft corporate glow, half bright, half twilight, that makes everything look more sterile than usual. I was behind on a deck I wanted to send before morning, and I'd stayed late on purpose, thinking I'd finally have the quiet to focus without someone Slack messaging me about a quick question. I remember the hum of the air conditioning, the faint chemical scent of the cleaning supplies stored in the supply closet down the hall, the way my heels clicked a little too loudly on the tile because the whole place was empty. Or so I thought. Rob's office is bigger than mine and always slightly warmer, like he runs hot or the vent hates him. In one corner, there's a communal printer and a small work table where people sometimes spread out materials when they're prepping for trainings. I'd saved a printout on that printer earlier in the day, something with handwritten notes in the margins that I wanted to reference as I worked, and I figured I'd grab it before I left. I walked down the hall with the confidence of someone who is absolutely sure she's alone. I didn't knock, because I didn't even consider there could be a reason to. I turned the handle, pushed the door open, and stepped in. And the scene froze in my brain like a photograph. Rob was in his chair, not slouched, not hiding, just sitting. His dress shirt was on, tie loosened like it had been a long day, sleeves slightly rumpled. But below his shirt, instead of dress pants, he was wearing sheer black pantyhose, real hosiery, the kind that has a subtle sheen when it catches the light. And on his feet were heels. Not novelty heels, actual heels, sleek and deliberate, the kind you could picture on a woman stepping out of a car at a restaurant. His legs were crossed, posture relaxed, like he'd been reading or thinking. It was the ease of it that made my breath catch. He looked, for a single heartbeat, like a man who had finally unhooked a tight collar he didn't even realize was choking him. Then the reality of someone walking in hit him, and that ease shattered. He recoiled so fast his chair wheels squeaked. His face drained of color, and his eyes, usually so steady, went wide with the purest, most immediate horror I've ever seen on another human being. Not the kind of horror you see when someone's caught doing something wrong. This was deeper. This was shame with its teeth out. This was the look of someone who thought his entire life had just toppled in a second. And because my nervous system is a chaotic little gremlin and laughter is my default when things jolt me, I laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, It wasn't loud. It was like a bark I couldn't swallow fast enough. The sound escaped before I could translate what I was seeing into a responsible response. Rob's expression tightened like he'd been hit. The second I saw that, I clapped my hand over my mouth. "Oh my God," I blurted, muffled by my fingers. Rob, I'm so sorry. I thought I was the only one here. My brain scrambled for the right words and came up with nothing but truth. I laugh when I'm startled. I'm not laughing at you. He moved like he was trying to reverse time. His hands went to his desk drawer, then to the back of his chair, then to the floor, like the dress pants might magically appear if he searched hard enough. His fingers were shaking. He leaned down, grabbed a pair of slacks crumpled near the chair leg, and started hauling them up over the pantyhose with frantic urgency. I should have left. I should have backed out, closed the door, and given him the privacy to breathe. A more polished version of me would have done that. But I saw the panic. I saw the way his shoulders were inching toward his ears. I saw the spiral forming in his eyes. What did she see? What does she think? What will she tell? How do I fix this? How do I erase it? I heard myself say, loud and clear, before I could second-guess it. Stop. Rob froze with the dress pants halfway up his thighs. The fabric hung there in a ridiculous pause, like the scene was waiting for me to write the next line. Don't, I said, stepping fully into the office so the doorway wouldn't frame me like a threat. I kept my voice low, steady. Don't feel anything negative about what is happening right now. He blinked, like he wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. I pointed gently at the chair, the one he'd been sitting in when he felt safe. Sit down, just as you were, legs crossed, your whole self at ease. His throat bobbed. He looked like he might argue, or bolt, or collapse. Then he sat, slowly, like if he moved too fast, the floor would break. He crossed his legs again. The pantyhose caught the light, a glossy whisper over his skin, and the heels made a soft, controlled sound against the carpet. I let myself breathe. Okay, I said, and forced my face into something calm, not performative, just kind. He stared at his desk, not at me. His voice came out raw. Jenny, I cut him off with the first practical question that popped into my head, the one that felt like a bridge back to normal humanity. What brand of pantyhose is that? He looked up, startled for a different reason. What? Your tights, I clarified, like we were discussing the printer being out of toner. What brand? A pause. His eyes searched my face for mockery and didn't find it. The tension in his shoulders loosened a millimeter. Calcedonia, he said, almost reluctantly, like saying it out loud made it more real. Okay, I nodded, as if I'd been genuinely curious all along. I thought so. They have that sheen. Do you have a link? I want to see which pair you're wearing. For the first time, something in him flickered. Confusion, maybe, but also relief. Because the conversation wasn't, what's wrong with you? It wasn't, how could you? It wasn't even explain. It was a simple, neutral request that treated him like a person with a preference, not a person with a secret. He swiveled to his computer. His hands were still shaky, but he moved with more purpose now. He clicked through a browser, pulled up a page, and angled the screen toward me. A product image of sleek black hosiery appeared, along with sizing and a name that sounded like it belonged in a fashion magazine. That one, he said quietly. In the darker shade. I leaned in, careful not to crowd him, and nodded. Great taste. The words landed in the room like a soft blanket. He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for years. I grabbed my printout from the communal table, but I didn't leave right away. Instead, I perched on the edge of the chair across from him and kept my tone light. So, I said, how long have you liked this? He flinched at the word liked, as if pleasure itself was dangerous. A long time, he admitted. It's not what you think. I don't think anything yet, I said, I just walked into a surprise fashion moment. That earned me the smallest, strangest smile, like his face was remembering how. "I've never told anyone at work," he said. "No one." "Then you don't have to," I told him immediately. Rob, I'm not going to say anything to anyone. This is yours." His eyes got glossy, and he looked away fast, embarrassed by even that. He cleared his throat. "I come in late sometimes," he said. "Or I stay. It helps. It's quiet." I nodded like he'd told me he liked to read in the dark. "I get it." And here's the thing. I did get it. Not in the exact, lived way. My relationship to gender has always been more settled than tortured. But I understood the craving for a moment where you can stop performing. I understood the private rituals that make you feel like yourself when the rest of your day belongs to other people's expectations. The next morning, I woke up in bed with Mia, sunlight cutting pale lines through the blinds. She was half asleep, hair everywhere, one arm thrown over my waist like a lazy claim. I lay there staring at the ceiling, hearing the echo of Rob's "a long time," and seeing the way his shame had snapped into place the second I opened that door. When Mia rolled over and squinted at me, she read my face in the way she always does. "What happened?" she asked softly. So I told her. Not every detail, not like gossip, but like a confession of my own. That I'd walked into something tender and terrifying, that I'd watched someone I respect crumble with fear, and that I'd decided in the moment to treat it like it was normal because maybe it should be. Mia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached up and brushed her thumb over my cheek. "He must trust you," she said. "I don't think he trusts anyone," I admitted. "I think I just didn't make it worse." Mia's eyes held mine. "That's not nothing, Jen." After that, something shifted between Rob and me. Not in a messy way. In a weird, quiet, surprisingly sweet way. He didn't bring it up again for a week. We went back to normal meetings, normal calls, normal sales chaos. But then, during a Monday morning huddle with a few regional leads, I caught him glancing at me with an expression I couldn't name. When the others turned to pack up their laptops, he stood and, so quickly I almost missed it, lifted the edge of his sweater just enough to show a strip of waistband at his hip. Black, delicate, unmistakable. I covered the laugh that rose up, not because it was funny, but because it was absurdly brave. I lifted my eyebrows like, "Really?" And he gave the smallest nod, eyes bright with adrenaline. It became our quiet, ridiculous little shorthand. Not constant, not reckless, but there in the margins. A flashed waistband when we were alone in the conference room, a glimpse when he stood to close his office door, the time we were on Zoom with a team in Europe and he shifted in his chair, and I caught the faint sheen at his ankle just before he adjusted the camera. He'd look at me afterward like a kid who'd gotten away with something harmless, and I'd shake my head, smiling despite myself. I started leaving things in his desk drawer the way you leave a note for someone you care about. The first time, I bought a pair in his size, matte black, simple, nothing too flashy, and tucked it into the back of his lower drawer beneath a stack of old training binders. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a big deal. I just did it. The next week, there was a small paper bag on my chair when I arrived, folded neatly, no label. Inside was a pair for me, women's hosiery, a brand I liked but hadn't talked about. It made my chest tighten in that strange way gratitude does when it's mixed with being seen. Not because I needed pantyhose, but because it was his way of saying, "I can be in this with you too. I'm not alone." The whole time, the larger truth sat between us like an unopened envelope. Margot. Rob loves her. That's never been in question. He speaks about her the way people speak about a safe place. He talks about her patience, her humor, her steadiness. He also talks about her as if she's a judge he might disappoint, which is unfair to her but very human. About a month after the office incident, he asked if we could grab coffee, not as boss and employee, but as two people trying to navigate a hard conversation. We went to a small cafe near the building, One of those places with industrial lighting and plants that look like they're barely surviving. The air smelled like espresso and warm pastry, and the background music was soft enough to feel private. He stared into his cup like it might give him instructions. "I need to tell her," he said. "I agree," I said gently. His jaw tightened. "I'm terrified she'll leave." I watched his hands. Still, controlled. The hands of a man who holds meetings and makes decisions and never lets people see him sweat. "Rob," I said, "you know her." "That's the problem," he said, and his voice cracked on the edge of a laugh that didn't come. "I love her so much that the idea of her looking at me differently feels like dying." I didn't sugarcoat it, but I also didn't feed the fear. "She might need time," I said. "She might have questions, but Margot is the most rational, open-minded person I've ever met. She loves you. She's not fragile." He swallowed hard. "What if she thinks it means something else?" "Then you tell her what it does mean," I said. "You tell her the truth, that this is something you enjoy, that it helps you feel, whatever it helps you feel, that it doesn't change how you love her." He nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "It's just pantyhose and heels," he murmured. I'm not trying to be someone else. I don't want outfits or makeup or anything like that. This." I believed him. I also knew identity can be complicated and evolving, but I wasn't there to label him. I was there to help him tell the person he trusted most without turning it into a catastrophe. We talked through practicalities. When to tell her, not after a fight, not right before bed, not right before a big family event. How to start, with love, with honesty, without apology that turns into shame. What to say if she goes quiet. Give her room, don't interpret silence as rejection. We even rehearsed a few lines, and I watched him flinch at his own words like they were too vulnerable to exist in daylight. Afterward, I went home and told Mia what was happening in the careful way we'd agreed on. No details that would make it feel like gossip, just the reality that Rob was planning to tell Margot and was scared. Mia listened and then said, "If Margot is who we think she is, she's going to be mad about one thing." "What?" "That he was alone with it," Mia said. "That he felt like he had to hide." That hit me, because it was true. Sometimes the worst part of a secret isn't the secret itself, it's the isolation. Now here's where you asked me the question that's been hovering in my mind too. Should I keep everyone posted about how Rob's confession to Margot goes? The honest answer is, I don't think this is an everyone story. Not because it's shameful, God no, but because it's tender. It's his marriage, it's his body, it's the most vulnerable part of him, and he didn't choose the moment I saw it. He survived it, and then he built something brave out of it. But that doesn't turn it into public property. What I do think is this. Keep Mia posted if Rob is okay with it. Not because Mia needs the content, but because you deserve support too. You're carrying a secret that isn't yours, and even when it's a sweet secret, it can still feel heavy. Mia is your partner. Let her be your anchor. And if Margot knows you already know, and if, after Rob tells her, they're both comfortable, then maybe, later, there's room for the four of you to talk in a way that feels respectful and real. But let Rob and Margot decide the shape of that. Let them choose how wide the circle is. Because the thing I learned the night I opened that door is that trust isn't built by grand gestures. It's built by what you do in the first 5 seconds after someone is exposed. It's built by whether you turn toward them with care or away with judgment. It's built by small acts that say, I'm not going to make you pay for being human. 2 months ago, I accidentally walked into my boss's private world and watched him think it was the end of his life. Now, when he flashes the faint line of a waistband in a meeting like a quiet victory, I don't see scandal. I see survival. I see a man learning, slowly, shakily, that he can be seen and still be respected. And if I'm being honest, I see something else too. A reminder that the people we think we know are always deeper than the roles they play. Rob isn't just my boss. He's a full person with a private language of comfort. Margot isn't just his wife. She's a woman who, I suspect, will love him through this, and maybe even feel honored that he chose to finally let her in. Mia isn't just my girlfriend. She's the reason I can go into strange, tender territory and not get lost, because she holds the thread back home. When Rob tells Margot, I'll be there in the way I'm supposed to be, steady, discreet, ready to remind him he's not broken. I won't turn it into a spectacle. I won't broadcast it like office news. I'll treat it like what it is, a moment in a marriage where honesty gets to breathe. And if it goes well, and I truly believe it will, I'm going to let myself feel proud. Not because I handled it perfectly, but because I chose kindness fast enough to beat my own nerves. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you respect is to make room for the parts of them that have been hiding.